Happy Father's Day, and I hope you're staying cool. We do have an excessive heat warning all weekend long. And on a day like this, you think about water, right? Doug Bennett is here from Southern Nevada Water Authority. Thanks for coming in for Talking Solutions.
Hi, Terry. It's my pleasure to be here.
I think people take it for granted.
You know, we've had both cases. We had people taking its availability for granted, but in some respects, also the drought has raged on so long that people have become a little bit complacent about that as well. It's not a new shaking issue, and like you said, sometimes it leaves the news now that we're in our 14th year.
Well, we see the bathtub ring around Lake Mead. When you take tourists out there, you go, oh, that's where the water levels used to be. We've seen marinas have to move their docks.
Sure.
And we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to conserve. That's why I thought you were the perfect person to talk with today. What is the most off-base thing people have said to you as far as their perception when it comes to water?
You know, it was quite contentious in the early 2000s when we moved into our very aggressive drought measures, and most of the public was behind us. But when people realized how that was actually going to impact their daily lives, I remember having a discussion with a woman where we were asking the HOAs to turn off these water features and fountains at the front gates. They not only are using water, but they're also a symbol that says a lot to the community. And I remember having a discussion about a woman who said that that really was her therapy, driving through the gate, coming and going each day. And I thought, really, that 20 seconds, that 11 seconds, the coming and going, I thought, as beautiful as the fountains can be, how can that really be one of the most highly valued uses of water? And she really pitched a case to me that that was the one thing that made her day. So it was interesting conversations when people started to realize what we were asking them to do and how it might infiltrate what they've come to know as long as they've lived here.
Sounds like that's her mental hit that she was presenting to you, saying, I get that I live in the desert, but as I'm coming and going through the gates, seeing that big display with the fountains, that just takes me away.
Yeah, it was a shock to me. I mean, and we do still have some fountains, but the fountains have been regulated. And so what we've done in a lot of ways is found ways to more than offset the water use. And so most of the fountains that you're going to see in the valley, the owners of those water features have done abatement measures in other parts of their community to offset it. So if they felt it was really important, they went out and they converted landscaping or did other water-saving measures so that they could keep that fountain running.
These days, when you see some video piece on Las Vegas, the first thing they show you is the Bellagio fountains in their glory.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a big difference between an ornamental aesthetic fountain, one that people find appealing or visually stimulating, and one that is a genuine bona fide economic attraction. You know, in today's conditions, would you see another Bellagio fountain, 8 acres of water going in? I don't think you would. However, once you have that fountain, the Bellagio has its own water rights issued by the state of Nevada. They don't take water from our system, but none of us that live in Las Vegas can deny the fact that every time you interact with tourists, that is absolutely on their list of must-do activities in this valley. So we need to look at what's an economic use of water versus what's a purely an aesthetic or frivolous use of water.
Every time you're around it and you see it, it's a wonderful display. The other thing, too, though, isn't it correct that that's not drinking water that they've got running in that lake and the Bellagio fountains?
Well, it's groundwater, and it's not typically very good quality groundwater, but there's some very expensive equipment in the Bellagio fountain. So they're going to treat that water and make sure it's of suitable quality to be in the fountain. Also, you've got obviously 100-foot high jets of water, and there's going to be mist and so forth. And so you want to make sure that water is of suitable quality, that if it were to come in contact with people, it's airborne with thousands of people watching. So I wouldn't say it's garbage water and we shouldn't worry about it. It certainly is a water resource, and the way they put it to work there is as an economic attraction for this community.
And they are responsible about the way they do it.
You know, one of the most amazing things, I came here from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I remember driving down the freeway and seeing signs that were as big as buildings, and I thought, how can people even drive here? I mean, there's like giant television screens with all kinds of stuff on them. How can you even keep your eyes on the road? And of course, you become desensitized to that pretty quickly. But your perception is that those resorts must be using an extraordinary amount of the water because of its visibility. And in the drought, we actually required every major resort to give us a water resource plan. How much water do you use? Where exactly does it go? And when we piled all of that together, we found out not only that they command just 7% of the water that's delivered to businesses and homes in the valley, a pretty small percentage, but that 75% of their water is used inside of the buildings, and that we have the opportunity to collect, clean, and reuse that water. So they actually have a very small footprint in terms of water resources. Their total demand on our water resources is less than 3%, but the gaming and entertainment industry in this valley produces either directly or indirectly about 70% of our economic activity. So we consider that a pretty good return on the water investment.
As far as the hotel, the casino industry, we we know that they're a much smaller segment of our total water use than people really think.
It was surprising to me, even as a professional, when we collected the data to see how much of their water was used outdoors. The other surprise, though, perception is everything. The fountains, the swimming pools, huge perception issues there. But when we took all of those uses, we found that those uses took a back seat to air conditioning in terms of the evaporation of water. I was getting phone calls saying, we need to turn off the fountains, we need to stop watering the grass, resorts need to do all these things. I didn't field any phone calls saying we need to turn off the air conditioning. But it's the air conditioning system in those very large buildings that evaporates more water than the wet water that we see when we visit the Strip.
Who knew? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and good things are happening there as well. If you go into these resorts, of course, everybody noticed that you don't hear nickels falling into trays anymore, right?
No, quieter.
But all these new gaming machines are low-energy gaming machines, and so the buildings are producing less heat through energy conservation, and that means they're more efficient in their water use for air conditioning as well.
So it all translates.
Right, it all comes together.
More efficient use of their energy inside the casinos, even the slot machines.
Right.
The video poker, it's not using as much energy, so there's not as much AC required to keep it at that wonderful cold temperature that it always is, especially in the summer months. But then that translates to also less evaporation from the AC system.
Right, from the cooling towers. So this time of year, you might see vapor coming up from a big steel louvered-looking box. That's the cooling tower for a large building.
See, I knew we were going to learn things from you. How about the biggest waste as far as the valley when it comes to water? Where is that happening?
Our biggest challenge is still landscaping. The non-functional lawn is a challenge for us. We did a study back from 1995 to 2000, ran 5 years of data on hundreds of residential homes. We also did dozens of businesses. And we found out that the average lawn in Las Vegas was getting 73 gallons of water per square foot per year. Let me put that into perspective. That's about 2 bathtubs full of water to water a piece of grass a little bigger than a sheet of paper. That's the equivalent of 10 feet of rainfall in a place where we're fortunate if we get something around 4 inches of rainfall. Don't get me wrong, I'm not opposed to lawns when that's the appropriate use. We need parks, we need soccer fields, we need playgrounds for children. There are lots of places where a lawn is an appropriate choice. Entertainment areas in your backyard. There are places where lawn is the right thing, but it's not everywhere. Through the 80s and 90s, this city put grass on every slope, median, parking strip, just ridiculous places. And then we put sprinklers on them. And especially in those kinds of locations, not only are we putting a ton of water on the grass, we were watering the street, we were watering driveways, we were running off slopes into the road. All that water you see in the street, obviously wasted water. So our mission really has been about not so much saying we can't have landscaping, but let's have efficient landscaping. Not we can't have swimming pools, let's manage our swimming pools efficiently. We want to eliminate waste more than anything. If our goal is beautiful living plants, well, let's find the plants that are best adapted to this environment. Let's put the grass where feet are going to run on it and people are going to fly their kite, and not in the parking lot of a grocery store. If we're going to have water features and things of that nature, either let's keep them small scale or let's make sure they provide some economic benefit to us. We got to make sure we're getting the most mileage out of the water we have available to us.
If we've got to have grass, put it somewhere where it actually has a use and a purpose.
Right, absolutely. Keep it functional, keep it, obviously sprinkler systems don't have the ability to effectively water some really odd shapes. Water gets sprayed in a straight line, and so just the design of your landscape can help its efficiency. If you have areas where there's overspray, then plant strategically around the margins to be able to put plants that'll capitalize on that extra water. There's a lot more that goes into the water-efficient design than just choosing the right plants. Mulching the surface, either rocks, bark, something over the surface. We all know that when you were a kid, if you wanted to find a bug or something, you'd turn over a rock. Why are they under there? Because it's moist, it's cool. So when we cover the ground with those mulches, it keeps the water in the ground where the plants can use it and prevents it from evaporating so quickly.
We're talking with Doug Bennett, who is Conservation Manager for the Southern Nevada Water Authority. Is there a resource to help people know what's the best approach?
What I'd suggest is you visit either the website of the Las Vegas Springs Preserve. You can see a variety of plants there. You can see what they're doing at this time of year, what they look like. You can touch them. You can smell them. They also have a great database where you can go online and say, I'm looking for a tree that's under 20 feet tall that likes full sun. And it'll give you a list of recommendations for this region. Their water needs, pest problems, some of the challenges. So it's a tremendous resource. A huge number of people will just go to the nursery and start wandering around the aisles and say, oh, I like this. What is this? I don't know, but I'm getting 4 of them. I'm going to find a place for them. A little
It's
planning
on
goes a
sale.
long way, because sometimes things that look great in the nursery are not good performers in the yard. Do a little research. When you create a landscape, you're creating something that's going to endure for decades. Imagine if every time you bought a car, you knew you were keeping that car for 30 years. You'd do some serious research, right?
I think so. That's really an investment.
Oh, absolutely. Especially in tract housing. They do hire professional landscape companies, but they do your landscape on a budget. You know, everybody gets 2 bushes and a tree, 2 bushes and a tree. And so this is your opportunity, especially in a cookie cutter environment, to add your own flair, to give your home its own distinction. And if you have areas that you have grass and you've been thinking about downscaling that grass, you don't have to get rid of it, but maybe you just want to shrink those turf areas into the functional parts of the lawn. We'll give you a rebate to convert your landscape to a more water efficient approach. And we pay people $1.50 per square foot. So we're paying anywhere from 25 to 50% of the cost. You just do the project. We don't have a lot of design requirements. We don't tell you which plants to plant. We give you basic guidelines, comply with those guidelines, and you get a check within a couple of weeks of finishing your project.
We had a lot of compliance with the idea that people would pull up grass and replace it with desert landscaping so that they could get that rebate. I know that a lot of people did take advantage of that.
Oh, absolutely. We've done 172 million square feet.
How big is that?
Yeah,
That's
I don't know.
huge.
You know, most of us are familiar with the strips of sod that they sell at the nursery, right?
Sure.
How grass comes in these little rolls or these pieces. They're 18 inches wide. The amount of grass that's been converted from this valley to water-efficient landscaping would be a strip of sod that would reach 85% of the way around the earth.
Whoa.
That's how much change has been affected in Las Vegas. Many of your listeners have done it. We have today water use that's approximately equivalent to what it was 15 years ago. And during those 15 years, we have more than 600,000 new neighbors in the Las Vegas Valley. So we're using the same amount of water as we did a decade and a half ago, and we're serving more than 500,000 additional people. And we're doing that because of the efficiency efforts of the people who live here in the Las Vegas Valley.
I know I've got appliances that are Energy Star, that are lower water usage, toilets, shower heads, washers.
Right?
All of that helps us toward that goal.
Oh,
That's a
absolutely.
great idea, though, that we've grown so much, but our water usage has not ballooned or exploded as a result.
Oh, yeah. We've done a great job in terms of conservation, but we're absolutely not done yet. I still need this job, Harry.
We'll keep you busy, don't you worry.
We still have water in the streets. We still have some non-functional grass. To be quite honest, we still have a segment of the population whose lives have not changed at all since 1985. And they have the same landscape. They're watering it the same way with aging sprinkler systems. So there are still people that we need to get on board. And the way we do that is by helping them understand through peer influence, through media like your show, that there are alternatives to this. And a lot of people resist those changes. But once you get them to break into it, so many people are so excited about what they've done. You know, when I moved here, this is a true story. I lived on a street with 8 houses just on one side of the street. For the first few days after I bought that house, I would just push the garage door opener because I wasn't quite sure which one. They looked the same.
They were
all
so
looked the
cookie
same.
cutter that you couldn't really
absolutely.
tell?
It was easier to let the garage door open.
Tell me which house I live at.
You know, people were scared to make a change. They were worried about what the neighbors would think. They were worried about where their dog was going to lay down. All these things can be accommodated in a good landscape design. And your neighbors are doing this with the exception of certain neighborhoods where we haven't really broken in. And every now and then I'll go into some gated community and go, wow, it's like a bubble in here.
It's throwback
yeah.
to an earlier time where everybody
Absolutely.
had way too much grass.
So there's still water out there to be captured through conservation.
If somebody was looking to do that, let's see the website, SNWA.com.
Yeah. And it's important that people know that we are governed by elected officials, that we're an agency that is owned by the people. We're a not-for-profit organization, and so are all of the water agencies in the Las Vegas Valley, the city of Henderson, Las Vegas Valley Water District. We think it's important people know we're doing all these things to manage water in the public interest, not because it improves our bottom line or we make a greater profit for our investors. There are no investors. We're invested in the success of this community.
It's funny because when you talk about water, it's such an issue. It's so important to all of us. And I love the different takes that I get. And I'm sure that you have the same thing come up. I've heard, gosh, they don't seem to charge very much for the water here, even though it's very, very valuable.
I'll find lots of people who want to argue with
I
them.
know that.
2 million people in this valley, and you just can't win them all over. And so my last water bill, I believe, was $27. And a significant part of that are the base charges for making sure that the system operates properly. It's a tiny fraction. I mean, literally 3 people at a fast food restaurant are going to run over $20 in terms of the expense. And yet you're providing a resource that's clean, that's functional, that's reliable, straight to people's homes and businesses. And we still have people that feel like it's extraordinarily expensive. It's kind of a quandary in some respects. I want you to conserve it, but it's pretty inexpensive. And the reason being, again, these are not not-for-profit agencies. They only have the desire and the ability to collect from their customers what it costs to run the system and provide the service. Now, we know that's getting more challenging. We have a third intake in the lake.
Third straw, as they call it.
Hundreds of millions of dollars. That third intake is going to require a pump station that's going to be able to draw from those deeper levels, hundreds of millions of dollars. And obviously, we as Las Vegans are going to have to pay for that infrastructure. And that's going to have an impact on your water bills. So it's very affordable, but as water gets more challenging, there are projects that must be done. On the bright side, the amount of infrastructure that we've needed in a conservation mode has been much lower than what it would have been if we were all behaving the way we did in the 1990s. And so it's hard to convince people that their bill is lower than it would have been without conservation, but it certainly has. We're serving many more customers with much of the same infrastructure. We haven't had to go add on to it. And these projects we're doing today are simply matters of water security and reliability. You can't do without them.
It's necessary for everything.
There's a lot of misconceptions about the lake. There are people that believe that, I guess through other media reports, that the Colorado River is going to dry up or that Lake Mead will one day be gone. We don't believe that's true by any measure. The conditions on the lake now are that many more people have access to the water than the river has been reliably supplying. So we're pretty confident that the river, in a climate change scenario, is probably going to produce less water. But we have the capacity as the states that draw on the Colorado and the country of Mexico to sort out our demands and to shrink our demands to come back into alignment with what that river is able to produce. In the meantime, though, imagine you're drinking your favorite cold drink on a hot Las Vegas day, and I gave you an 8-inch tall glass and a 4-inch long straw. You're not going to be able to get it all.
I'll have to tip that baby to get
So
to
unless
it.
the waitress wants to come by and keep refilling you every time you draw it down, and that's the situation with the third intake. We want to make sure that we have an intake that's low enough in the lake that we always have the ability to draw our limited amount of water. The other thing I've seen described in the media is that Las Vegas wants to be able to suck the last drop out of Lake Mead. Absolutely not. We get 1.8% of the water allocated on the Colorado River. We will never get more than that. That's our allocation. So we have a very tiny sliver of water, but we need this infrastructure to make sure that we absolutely always have access to that 1.8%.
It's like a Colorado River pact that started way back years. I'm going to say 1930s era.
1920s, actually.
Yeah, where they started parceling it out, give some to Arizona, and Nevada doesn't have a lot of agriculture and was very, very small in comparison to what we are now.
There were about 5,000 people scratching out a living here in the 1920s.
And then there's California,
which had enormous potential, and we should appreciate that potential because a huge amount of the food we eat comes from California.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of folks that say, well, let's go back and revisit the 1920s and the 30s and all these decisions that decided how much water we should get because there are now 2 million of us and we have a substantial economy. What we found is most effective is not trying to go wrestle things away from your neighbors, but working with your neighbors collectively to come up with solutions that work for all of us. So there's a very good functioning relationship between the 7 states that take Colorado River water and even the country of Mexico. There's been huge improvements in policy. There are negotiations going on all the time about how we're going to deal with some of these issues and make sure that all of our economies are solid and that water is supplied to people throughout the West that rely on the Colorado River.
Cooperation, that's
Absolutely.
the ticket. We were talking about water rates, about $10 for the water bill for me on a monthly basis.
Depending which jurisdiction you live in, because everybody's got different rate.
I hadn't thought about it. Mountain's Edge.
Okay, Las Vegas Valley Water District. Typically, in your home, you use anywhere from, in a new modern home, no leaks and so forth, you're typically going to be using about 45 to 55 gallons of water per person per day. One of the big surprises is most of your water goes outside. So even in a very water-efficient household, even with desert landscaping, you got to remember, there's still a lot of stuff out there. Your landscape is to water what your air conditioner is to your electric usage.
Huge.
It is the big dominant force. And it's important to us because any water you run down the shower, washing machine, dishwasher, all of those appliances in your home, we have full opportunity to collect it, clean it, and reuse it. Every gallon of water that's taken from the environment to help supply the community of Southern Nevada actually gives us 1.7 gallons of use because we use water indoors and then we reuse 100% of that water that was used indoors.
It's reclaimed.
Absolutely. In that respect, we're one of the largest cities in the West in terms of our water reuse programs. Makes up 40% of our water supply.
Stuff that you use outdoors is not that way.
It's lost to the atmosphere. It evaporates, runs off. So simple things everybody knows. I hope you people know. Turn off the water when you brush your teeth, but don't call that your conservation program. You should have been doing that since you were 3 or 4 years old. Hopefully you've been doing that all along. What's important to us is consumptive water use, water that is lost to the environment and ultimately evaporates into the air.
Swimming pools.
Swimming pool evaporation, yeah, it can be substantial. About 1 in 4 homes in the Las Vegas Valley have a swimming pool. And I have to tell you, we were talking about efficiency. We don't have anything against swimming pools. Make sure they're appropriately sized and appropriately managed. And by gosh, go swim in them. The least efficient swimming pool is the one that you look out the back window at and nobody ever gets in.
It's not just there to look pretty. What are you talking about?
And one program that we have that's been very successful is we help people pay for a swimming pool cover. And a swimming pool cover can reduce evaporation by more than 10,000 gallons per swimming pool per year, and that's substantial. It can also save you a lot of energy. It can expand the usage season for your swimming pool. There are many, many benefits of using a pool cover. I realize it's a little bit of a hassle. You want to swim, you got to go out there, you got to pull this thing off, you got to roll it up, fold it up, put it away. You get done, you got to go put it back on. But it's an important management strategy, and we're asking people to go a little bit out of their way to try and get the most mileage out of our water supply.
Let's liken it to making the bed when you get up every morning. Yeah, well, we're just going to get back in it tonight. It's worth it. Come on, it's not that big a
Depends who you are, I guess. But I had a son that he would argue that rationale on and on, that there's no sense. I'll just close the door and we'll all be good.
Yeah.
At one point, I finally decided, all right, let's go with that.
Yeah. Even in a water-efficient landscape like I have at my house, still water is one of my bigger users outside.
We're one of the few cities in the U.S. that actually has to water our landscapes year-round. It's important that people comply with the watering restrictions.
I like what you said about the pool cover. That sounds like a win-win for everybody. Helping to conserve on energy, helping to save water. You have some kind of program with Southern Nevada Water Authority.
Yeah, it's a cool program. It's because it's so simple. And it's also good for the businesses that support the pool industry. We will pay up to half of the cost of a floating swimming pool cover, up to $50. And so it typically costs people $80 to $120 depending on the size of their pool to get one of these covers. You just go to SNWA.com. Can't find your way around the site. There's a lot of stuff there. In the search box, just type in pool, and you will find our pool cover coupon program. And all you do is you fill in some lines, you print this coupon on your home computer, and you take it to one of the participating dealers, and virtually all swimming pool maintenance companies subscribe to the program. Take your pool cover up there, and they go, that's $100. You hand them the coupon, and they go, oh, minus $50, because the water authority is going to pay for half, and therefore you only pay $50 at the register. And what's cool about that is I don't need you to clip a UPC symbol and tape it on a sheet of paper and fill out a form and lick a stamp and mail it to me and wait several weeks to find out if you get a rebate or not. We deal with it through the business community. They turn all the coupons into us, we validate them, and then we reimburse them. It makes it much simpler for the consumer to do it that way.
You don't have to do any follow-up. You just give the coupon to the company that's helping you with that pool cover, and they go, we'll take it from here. We're good.
Yeah, we do that every 3 years. So if you're a pool owner, I know these things don't last forever, but please do take care of your cover. If you don't take care of it, it'll last 1 to 2 seasons. If you take good care of it, fold it up, keep it out of the sun when you're not using it, and so forth and so on, you can usually get 3 seasons of use out of a pool cover. Now, I know a lot of people might want to argue with that, but we'll only give you a coupon every 3 years. So don't expect us to buy you one every single year so you can wad up the other and throw it away. We want to get some mileage out of it.
But if somebody has actually taken part in that program or didn't know about it previously and had a pool cover years ago, when they get that new one every 3 years, they can look to taking advantage, at least at this point in time, of that pool cover rebate.
We have another program for what's called a smart irrigation controller. Same kind of coupon approach. So a smart irrigation controller, a lot of us Southern Nevadans are perplexed about the irrigation controller that turns our sprinklers and our drip systems on and off. And it's a confusing little device for a lot of people, but a smart controller has the ability not only to allow you to put data into it about your needs, but it also monitors the weather. And so when we had rainy, cool weather, it would know, and it would say, I know you're allowed to water every week, but we don't need to water this week. It's pretty wet out, and it would keep the water off. So if it was raining, it would turn off the water. If it was cool or humid, it might run the water, but it might apply less water. If it was extremely hot and windy, it would water on your watering day, but it might put a little more water on. The idea being to give the plants just what they need. These smart controllers will pay up to half the cost of a smart controller, up to $250. And that also can be done through this coupon approach by visiting a participating retailer.
Find out all about that at SNWA.com. Wow, these are things that I did not even know existed.
Yeah, well, we try to inform you. We got stuff in your water bill. I know everybody just pulls the water bill out. They look at how much do I owe.
No, that's what the husband does. That's why I don't see it, is because he handles that.
There's often a little flyer in there talking about some of the programs that exist. And so we're hoping that people will read these. I'm always shocked that people who've lived here for 5, 6, 10, 15 years.
23 here.
Yeah, sometimes don't have any idea that we've been offering these programs. Or there's also sometimes people are surprised, oh, you still do that? They had heard somewhere that we don't do it anymore. So yeah, we're still big on conservation. We have lots of programs. The business sector is a challenge for us because many of the buildings in this valley are being owned and managed by corporations where the bill is being sent to Minneapolis. And of course, the accounting department is opening the bill. Sometimes they're not even sure what the bill should look like. They don't know if there may be a huge leak at that building. Is this a normal bill? They just simply process it. And so in many cases, the business sector is detached from what's going on in Las Vegas simply because a lot of our messaging is going to their corporate offices in other parts of the United States.
They're a little bit more removed.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why it's important for people in a workplace, be they residents or the proprietor or a manager in a workplace, to try and get the corporation's attention about what those opportunities are and what we can do locally. It's not that the corporations are opposed to doing it. In many cases, it's a very cost-effective measure for them. They just don't have any idea of what's going on in all these thousands of different communities that they operate in.
You mentioned a moment ago about a leak, monitoring for leaks. I had a friend several years ago, Henderson area, and I know that he had a pool in the yard, and suddenly his water bill came around and it was $800 something. It was
Wow.
$800 plus.
Shocker.
He's thinking that there's been a mistake made on the end of the water authority, when in reality
You want to find somebody to blame for an $800 bill.
Well, you
right?
want to call up and go, can you take care of that? And they say, well, no, we can't. Ongoing, we can help you with things, but you obviously have a leak, and you need to keep an eye out for things like that, because that is something that the homeowner is going to be liable for. It's not like you're going to be with the credit card company and call up customer service and say, can you take that late fee off? And boom, they do it. It's not the same thing.
Well, some of the agencies actually can help you. They can help you figure out what's going on. They may even be able to help you with the bill. They may be able to arrange payments for you. Sometimes they have an assistance program. And so it doesn't hurt to call them. If you ever want to know more about how to determine if you have a leak and how large it is and what the cost efficiency is of tracking it down and fixing it, we have a terrific video that you can watch online. So go to SNWA.com, put the word leak in the search box. You'll find a video there. It's about a 25-minute long video that helps a homeowner walk through the steps of figuring out, do I have a leak? And if so, how large of a leak? Keep in mind that water is really destructive. In your mind, a leak is a dripping faucet, or it's where water comes through the ceiling when a pipe bursts or something. A huge number of leaks are completely unseen. A leaking toilet, especially if it's a bathroom that you rarely use, can lose thousands and thousands of gallons of water per month. A hung up toilet flapper chain, the chain gets tangled. I've had people where they went on vacation for a week. Somebody used the restroom right before and forgot to jiggle the handle, and water ran 6 gallons a minute for an entire week. And of course, you are ultimately going to have to pay for that water, but a lot of these things are avoidable, or you can explore and figure out what's going on. So the video is a very useful tool, but also monitor your water bill, what's normal. And a leak can sometimes creep up on you. I used to work for the city of Albuquerque. I had a customer that talked to me on the phone. We went through, he explained there's only 2 of them. I looked at his house on an aerial photo to see what his landscape looked like. His bill seemed extraordinary to me, and he goes, no, that's pretty normal. But when I looked at multiple years of history, what had happened is it just crept up. It was a gradual leak that was getting worse and worse and worse. So it's a little bit like the frog in the boiling pot, right? If you turn up the heat real slowly, the frog forgets to jump out. And he became conditioned to the bill just getting higher and higher and higher. He thought it was a water rate issue.
Well, yeah, you would think there's just getting more expensive.
Yeah. And water at the time was getting more expensive, but his usage was actually creeping up. So pretty simple stuff. Lots of information on the web. You can watch a video and absolutely learn how to do some of this yourself. And even if you're going to hire a plumber, you're going to pay them $60 or $80 an hour. The more homework you can do, the more effectively you can point them to where the problem is. You don't want to pay them $80 an hour to come explore things that you could have explored for yourself to maximize the efficiency of their time and come out with the smallest bill you possibly can.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of great things on the website, SNWA.com. I knew that I wanted to get you in here to talk about water issues because to me that's one of the biggest things we're facing in the Valley. We've got to have it to live. We got to take care of it. We need to conserve it. We need to be knowledgeable about it. We need to do it right.
Oh, absolutely. And we need to be proud about what we've accomplished. We need to realize that many of us, our own children, are going to stay here in this valley, and we may be serving a larger and larger population over time. That's just the trend for all Western cities. But we need to realize that we have done a good job, and we have pulled together as a community around this. In many respects, it was somewhat contagious. Someone on the block would do it. Someone else would feel like it was okay to do it. Somebody else would follow suit. And we're really changing the face of the whole community that way. We should be proud of what we've accomplished and of what we're going to accomplish in the future.
And it's not that hard to do. We do have a lot to be proud of as far as the Las Vegas Valley and this entire area, the way that we've reacted to trying to conserve our water resources. I think everybody deserves congratulations on that.
Yeah, and don't stop. Keep
No.
going. We need to keep pushing down that road, and we need to try and encourage other people to get with us.
Check the website, very informative, SNWA.com. I've learned a lot today.
Well, that's good. I've enjoyed being here.
Doug Bennett, the Conservation Manager with the Southern Nevada Water Authority. Appreciate you joining us today on Talking Solutions. Talking Solutions is a production of the Community Relations Department here at Beasley Media Group, Las Vegas. Get more information on today's topic on our Talking Solutions page on Facebook, where you will also find links and a podcast of today's show. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.